I'm going to log in as an admin, and an admin is what our customers see first. And so what you'll notice right off the bat is that there's a requirement of a long and strong password, and that all accounts in WireVault require two-factor authentication. So in this case, it's a security code that's sent to the mobile phone number associated with my account. You'll see this is a recurring theme. So once I log in, I'm brought to a dashboard. This is my organization up here, WireVault, and I'm able to create transactions. Our whole system is predicated on this idea that transactions have wires, and it's incredibly flexible. It can be used for M&A transactions. It can be used for real estate. It can be used for disbursements, really anything that involves a wire transfer. So for an example, I'm just going to use, I'm just going to do a real estate closing. And I can, specify a closing date. Usually these dates are used to communicate, when the transaction is going to be complete. It can be left blank in this example. When I go into this transaction, this is where I can actually create all the wires that are a part of this closing. You can choose two different types. You can have a deposit, an inbound wire, which is a deposit, or you can do an outbound wire, which is a payment. I'm just going to demonstrate one of them, because once you understand one, the other one's kind of self-explanatory. And I'm going to do an outbound payment, and I'm going to call it a payoff. Let's say you're paying off the owner of this particular property. And I'm going to save it. So now that this wire has been created, I'm going to go into that wire, and I can specify the email and the mobile phone number of the recipient. So this is very similar to e-signature software that you're probably very familiar with. The difference, though, is that we require the mobile phone number because that is what is required to authenticate that this person is who they say they are. So even if their email is compromised, even if their password has been reused, the person who has access to the inbox can't create a WireVault account unless they get the security code to this phone number. So for demo purposes, I'm going to use Richard Reed, who is a user of WireVault, who's already used WireVault in the past. And I'm going to say that he is the actual recipient. Now, you do have the opportunity to say that this recipient is actually a proxy. So in this case, it could be maybe the attorney that represents the actual client. This is actually a relatively new feature that we released in the last few weeks. So, but for this demo, I'm just going to say that he himself, Richard, is the actual recipient. So when I assign Richard to this wire, he receives a notification that there is a request, and I'm going to switch over to this green tab, that there's a request for collecting his payment information. And so Richard clicks this link in the email. He's brought to WireVault. Again, he has to enter in his long and strong password that only he knows. And he has to enter in the security code that's sent to his mobile device. And so here is the wire that he has to respond to. And so, already pre-populated his name and say, let's say his address is 123 Main Street. I have to enter in the routing number. And we do a double check to ensure, we ask the recipient to enter it in a second time to ensure that there's no human error. I can just provide the bank name, same with the account number. And enter in an address. And so once this information in this form is complete, he has to hit the submit button. And so from here, he is certifying that this is valid wire information. And the most important aspect of this, and this is kind of the second aspect of our security model, is that this information will actually be committed to the WireVault blockchain and cannot be changed. It cannot even be changed by us. It is stored in a distributed database that only that we ourselves, as our organization that runs this application, cannot modify. And I think that's an important step. So once the recipient hits yes, it can take somewhere between 1 to 10 seconds for it to be committed to the blockchain. And you can see here, this is the blockchain ID that exists. And once that information has been submitted, I'm going to switch to the red tab back to the admin. I'm going to actually go into the inbox here, and the admin itself is actually notified that the information has been securely collected. And so because I recently authenticated, all I have to do as the admin is click this button, and I'm brought right to this kind of details page about the wire, and I can click this view button to see the information. Again, here's the blockchain ID, and here's the routing number and account number for this payment. Now, you can actually take this information and you can share it with somebody. We call that role an executor. You can share this, say, with like your comptroller at your firm, and then they can actually securely authenticate and access this information and then execute the payment, following whatever method you do to transact. That could be going into an actual brick and mortar location at a bank, or it could be logging in on a web portal and actually transposing this into the bank's user experience. We mentioned, and I think it's been talked about, that a lot of firms use Excel and they transpose this information into those documents. What we instruct our customers is to actually use this kind of unique URL at the top. So you can copy and paste this into an Excel spreadsheet and still use a spreadsheet if that's the workflow that you're familiar with. But the key here is that the information itself is not actually stored in that spreadsheet. It's actually stored in WireVault, and that you have to be successfully authenticated to view it. This prevents anyone who has access to that file, say, that file gets circulated around the office and someone's email is compromised, that it can't be kind of weaponized as a attack vector. So once this wire is sent, you can mark that the wire was actually sent successfully, and then the recipient themselves, I'm going to switch over again one last time and refresh their inbox and see that they're notified that the wire has been successfully executed. So that is kind of the main flow. We do, like I said, have ways to do deposits, and that's where you can manage kind of all your accounts, bank accounts that you may have over on this side. But the basic structure is the same. If you have to make a deposit, you create a wire that is an inbound wire. You then specify the information of the person who's making that deposit, using their email and mobile phone number, and then they can securely access those instructions. And so it's no longer emailed, say, in a PDF. It requires them to authenticate. We're working with a company called TrustStamp to introduce multi-factor authentication. So I demonstrated two-factor authentication, which is, again, I have to know my password and I have to have my phone to access the security code. But we will be introducing the third factor, which is actually identity verification. And it has kind of two components to it. One is actually scanning the ID, your ID, so your driver's license or passport, and then taking a selfie. And so what this service actually does is it checks for authenticity of that ID. It actually checks to make sure that the person who is responding to the request is actually a real live person. So it's a liveness check. And then it then compares the selfie image with the image that's actually on the document that's provided to ensure that, the distance between the eyes and the nose are all accurate. And then lastly, it's comparing and making sure that the name on the document itself matches the name associated with their WireVault account. Now, this feature is something that we will make optional for our customers, meaning not every wire transfer is going to be of a certain value that's going to require this third factor of authentication. You're more than welcome to do that if that's how you want to conduct your business. But one of the sayings that we have is that security is a function of inconvenience. And so we're trying to walk this line of offering something that is easy to use, but also incredibly secure. And this now is just another kind of tool in our tool set here that will offer unparalleled security when conducting payments via wire.